Good afternoon, everyone. I really think this subject could go very, very long, but I'm gonna try to cut the fat from the meat here, saying the least, because this is a wide topic that a lot of us need to be aware of because the things that we eat, the things that we put in our mouth are one of the most important things. But let me tell you that America and their food standard, the food industry, is one of the most profitable businesses in the world. America makes more money off of food than any other country in the world. When I look at large countries like China and India, I would think that they will make more money because they have very, very large populations. India, over a billion people, China, over a billion people. America, we are roughly at anywhere between 340 million to anywhere 350 million. At one point, we were 330 million. But we produce and we consume the most foods. This is very important because big businesses have gotten to the food industry and have taken over in so many darn ways. As I was doing my research, family, it says meat is among the most well-known culture products, but many foods can also be lab grown. Lab grown chocolate can be created with cells harvested from cocoa beans. Dairy products like milk can also be lab grown using bacteria or fungi to create the same whey proteins found in cow's milk. Now, believe it or not, over 70% of the population, especially for Black people, 70% of the population are intolerant to dairy products. But we have dairy in almost everything. For the most part, dairy gives people upset stomachs, indigestions, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation, acid reflux. The list of these medical conditions continue to go on, but they continue to put these inflammatory products in our food. Okay, I cannot tackle the entire food industry because there's just so much. Someone needs to do like a 4-hour documentary on this, and that still won't be enough information for you guys to digest. And as we look at the information, it states here that in addition, lab grown beef, cultured chicken, and duck products are in the works. They are currently already mixing the food with lab grown beef. I saw some clips that in these meat factories, in order to produce more meat, they're mixing real meat with lab grown meat. I'm just going to call it fake meat. They've been mixing lab grown meat with fake meat. And we need to understand, family, we're no longer consuming real products. We're never consuming, essentially livestock. We are consuming lab grown food. Scientists are also experimenting with the same process of cell agriculture to produce milk, eggs, and leather. Okay, milk, eggs, and leather. We know that the price of eggs have went up 30% for 2 cartons of 18 eggs, $16 at Costco's. That's the current price. For a dozen of eggs at your local grocery store, some of you are looking at anywhere between $7 and $10. So profiteering is not only occurring with the influx and inflation of the current economy that we currently live in, but the way that they grow food, that they agriculture food, and the way they price food is also profiteering in a very, very negative way. But we're going to get in some of the negative effects of the foods that these guys are actually producing, that they're actually selling, and how the food industry in the U.S. is the most profitable business when it comes to food in the entire world, with a population of over 300 million people, okay? Now, again, we look at the continent of Africa, there's over 1 billion people in the continent of Africa, give or take 100,000 or so. But roughly there's 1 billion people there. So let's look into some more information here. I was just scamming. I was scanning. I said scamming, scanning Twitter. And we only think get food profiteering from a perspective of the economy, right? This person states that you are right. Corporate food waste profiteering is genuinely terrible and indicative of significantly more problems than an individual engaging in negligible amounts of food waste. But as someone who relates the personal effect against food waste and be fulfilling. And then we go into inflation is up 10.1% to 10.4% in February. They're kind of essentially food profiteering is occurring because of the current state of inflation. No, family, food profiteering has been happening ever since the early 1800s. Does anyone remember CocaCola? Now, at some point in time, they try to debunk that they was actually putting cocaine in their Coke products, but it was found out that they was actually putting cocaine in the Coca-Cola products, right? And they said that the current recipe that they have today has eradicated cocaine or anything that's addictive, essentially, to their products. And this is not a smear campaign on Coca-Cola. This is just an example of how in the late 1800s that the industry of food was really making way of industrializing food to a point to have people addictive. Because I'm gonna give you the number one food additive that they add in almost every single thing that makes majority of Americans fat and nasty. Okay, even myself, I'm a product of this video. Okay, I'm a product of this video. Okay, at my height and my weight, I am probably 45 pounds overweight, and we have been manipulated and tricked and brainwashed to think when people are at a healthy weight that, oh, you're too skinny, or why you're not eating enough, because we're used to seeing people swollen. We're used to seeing people sick. And it makes me sick because these are the things that, unfortunately, family, we know, but we are still addictive. And this is hard to swallow. This is hard to grasp the concept that for a very, very long time, the conditions that you are in is by your own fruition and the lack of knowledge, but it's also by the food industry, the U.S. food industry, putting all of these additives and preservatives and sugar in your food. Majority of us are addicted to sugar, but nonetheless, they were stating here in this fact-finding USA Today report that they was essentially putting 3.5 grams of cocaine. Now, they kind of backed away from 3.5, grams of cocaine, which is a lot. But it states here, this is kind of funny, it says that it explains why our parents could walk to and from school up hills both ways in the snow barefoot, right? Making a joke out of it that they were so damn high on cocaine, okay? And again, they didn't stop, I believe they altered the ingredients. They altered the formula of making Coca-Cola back in the mid-'80s, if I can recall correctly. It states here, Coca-Cola did, in fact, once contain cocaine, according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse. When the popular drink was invented, it was first marketed as a patient medicine. Oh, yeah, it was a medicine because cocaine was legal at the time. It was a common ingredient in medicines, according to the Institute. Now, family, they came out with so much information of surveys and studies of, they had proof even before they made Coca-Cola public that it was addictive. So they already knew by you drinking Coca-Cola that you will become addictive. They knew this back in the late 1800s. Okay, let me move on. It says that the cocaine in the drink and later its removal presented a delicate public relations problem for the company in its early years, according to the book. It says, for God, country, and Coca-Cola, the company responded to attacks by telling the truth. They will be admitting that the drink did once have cocaine in it. For God, country, and Coca-Cola, the implication would be that they had removed it because it was harmful, which might have even opened the door to lawsuits. Besides, it was unthinkable to admit that Coca-Cola had ever been anything but pure and wholesome. Absolutely false. My family, especially one of my uncles, he used to drink Coca-Cola like it was no tomorrow. And I'm late 70s, so believe me, they didn't change this formula until like the mid 1980s, family. So it states here, company spokesman told the New York Times in 1988 that the original recipe brewed in 1886 included cocaine, but the drug was eliminated from the recipe just after the turn of the century. They mean in the 80s, because that's when they did the report. Oh, yeah, we changed it like a year or so ago. Okay. It says the cocaine in the drink was specifically egocaine, a precursor to cocaine. According to Snopes, it was derived from extract from the coca plant. So this was kind of one of the first tall tale signs that America food industry was allowing these big businesses to have the American public to be addicted to food products. So when cocaine didn't work out, they have been using all sorts of preservatives and all of these things that call cancer and ADHD in the children. The list goes on and on and on. I'm going to jump somewhere really quick, family, because this book right here made me aware of 30 different types of sugars. This is Fat Chance by Robert Lustig. I read this book about 5 or 6 years ago, and I kind of look at this book calling the two white devils, because the one thing they really don't talk about is salt, because we know salt is a retainer of all things. Salt helps retain sugar, salt retains water, but we also need salt to a certain degree. But because unhealthy food practices, either when we cook or when we eat, or the way we learn even how to cook, we overtly put a large volumes of salt and sugar in our food. I remember one of the secret ingredients to spaghetti was to put sugar in spaghetti, because it makes the spaghetti, it actually enhances the flavor, because we understand that sugar is the number one food flavors that they actually use in majority of the foods. It doesn't matter where you get the food at, family. Majority of the food has some sort of sugar in it. And by reading this book, I learned that there's over 30, 40 types of sugar, right? And then if they don't use sugar, they use sweetener. They use stevia, they use adenine, they use all these different types of sugar. And I'm not going to break it down, but if you want to learn about, the type of things that they put in the food in America, this was a good book that I absolutely referenced and read myself, okay? Profiteering, the practice of making or seeking to make an excessive or unfair profit, especially illegally or in a black market. Family, they've been profiteering for a very long time now. They don't have to deal in the black market, okay? The USDA, as well as the EPA, as well as any food organization that's so-called test the food in America, has allowed this to go on because of profit, because they're getting paid under the table to allow these things. Now, I went out to some of these other countries to figure out what are some of the things that America is allowing, but countries like, or places like Europe is not allowing, right? So they did this kind of compare and contrast. And this is as of December of last year. American food versus European food. And what kind of sprung this video to mind was, as my wife and I was going to South Africa and coming back from South Africa, we were eating a lot of bread. But anytime we would eat bread in America, our stomach would bloat and we will feel stuffed, and you might even feel crawling of the skin. You might even feel itchy to a certain degree. I know y'all like, what type of bread y'all was eating? No, we was eating wheat bread. We was eating rye bread, things of that nature. But I will say this, family, when it comes to bread, bread is already a European food versus, quote, an African derived food, where they eat more stuff like fufu or ugali. That's kind of like made from roots, like the yucca root or the cassava root, versus something that they concocted with dough and this artificial stuff. But nonetheless, the way Europe does food and the way America does food is totally different. That's because, in my opinion, Europe is not trying to kill their citizens, whereas though America is out there profiteering and really don't care, because the richest of the rich, they don't eat the same things that they make, produce, market, or advertise. But they know that you do. They know that you're making $45,000 to $50,000, and that instead of going to a wholesome place to get a real meal that mostly have organic food, they know that you're going to go to your McDonald's, your Burger Kings, your Wendy's. You're going to get something very quick. Now, I want you to see the comparison here between the US fries and the UK fries, right? Let's go down the list here. Potatoes, vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, natural beef flavor. This is in your French fries. Sodium acid, phosphate, salt, fried in a vegetable oil blend with citric acid. And a lot of these words I know how to pronounce, so don't beat me up about that, family. Then we go over to the UK side of the house. Potatoes, vegetable oil, sunflower, rapeseed, dextrose, fried in non-hydrogenated vegetable oil. Salt is added after cooking. That's it. That's all they're adding to their food for their people. And we're going to get into some of the deadly chemicals and preservatives that the U.S. allows that other countries do not allow. Let's move on. Now, they, of course, talk about all these other things in a very detailed level. We're going to go right past that. We're going to go to one of our favorites, oatmeal. I know a lot of you guys like oatmeal or cream of wheat. Cream of wheat is kind of my favorite, but again, it's unnatural. Now, we look at the ingredients from the U.S. version of oatmeal versus UK version. Family, of course, some of these words we can't even pronounce. I know that I can't. But we start off with whole grain rolled oats, sugar, of course, right? Sugar. Creamy agent, and then they tell you dextrin, sunflower, and palm oils, whey, sodium caseinate, flavored and colored fruit pieces, dehydrated apples, treated with sodium sulfate. The dehydrated apples are treated with sodium sulfate. That has to be some sort of preservative, right? Artificial strawberry flavor. Artificial meaning that it's fake. Citric acid, red 40, guar gum, artificial flavor, citric acid. I mean, family, the list goes on and on and on. We come over to the UK side of the house. Quaker whole grain rolled oats, sugar, freeze-dried raspberry pieces, freeze-dried strawberry pieces, natural flavoring. That's it. They're not even using the preservatives that the U.S., because we could get a box of oatmeal like this, family, and you look at the expiration date, and you're like, wow, that doesn't expire till next year. Because it's unnatural. Because this is all based upon profiting. This is the art of profiteering, family, where they don't care about your health. Because if they did, a lot of these things won't even involve sugar. Sugar is the number one addictive ingredient in anything except itself. You get what I'm getting at, right, family? Sugar is the most addictive ingredient to any food except for itself. More times than not, if you guys are buying things out of boxes, if you're buying things out of cans, 9 times out of 10, 99% of the chance, it has some form of sugar in it. Now let's get into it. Now, of course, I had to use China in this, just for shits and giggles, nonetheless. But we're going to go down. It states here that in China, nearly all meals are shared, right? And we understand in the U.S., most of us eat alone, believe it or not. I mean, some of us may eat with our family, but a lot of us, we may eat lunch alone or dinner alone or even breakfast alone. When I was in Korea, family, a lot of them shared all their meals. It's un-American to us, right? But what they will have is these plates where food is gathered right in the middle, and you will put little bits and pieces on your plate. Now, in Korea, what they also do that I do not condone is you will make your plate, you'll have food on your plate, and it will be an assembly of different assorted foods, and you can pick from those different items. I've seen where other Koreans would take food off of other people's plate. And it occurred to me, and I was like, I had to understand the customs and courtesies and the culture of that nation. But family, I said, hey, I'm American. We don't do that. I had to teach them, hey, listen, I know I'm in Korea, but you don't just go on somebody's plate. I wanted that piece of chicken. But it states here, 60% of Americans regularly eat alone. Okay? 60% of Americans usually eat alone. They were talking about how a lot of Chinese people do not overeat because they eat food in bite sizes and they eat in a community. Because a lot of times when you're eating at dinner in a group setting, whether it be 4 or plus people, more times than not, if you're out and about, you guys are having conversation. So that's allowing your food to digest. So more times than not, when you're out and you're actually having conversations, you're conversing with one another, you guys gonna box up probably half of your plate, because in America, they do give you large portions, okay? It states here, chopsticks are ingrained in the culture, and I'm not telling you guys to go out and use chopsticks. I'm not telling you that, but I'm just kind of telling you how other cultures do things differently, and explains why that they are much smaller than Americans. They are much, much smaller than Americans, because not only do we overeat, but why do we overeat? We overeat because of the things that are in the food, because we want more and more and more and more of it. And some people are like, oh, you need to practice discipline. Well, part of that discipline that we don't have, and I'm kind of giving you guys a scapegoat here, is because of the amount of sugar, preservative, and other ingredients that they put in your food to make it addictive. Then they make organic foods that don't have all those ingredients inside of it very expensive. So you're like, do I pay my rent or do I eat healthy? You're like, no, I'm gonna pay my rent. And so you get a bunch of preservative food that has a lot of other ingredients in it that doesn't agree with your body. That's why a lot of us have belly fat. That's why a lot of us have thigh fat. That derives in all other sorts of problems like thyroid problems and diabetes and high blood pressure and gout and elephantitis and so on and so forth, and cancer. The list goes on, family. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. And I went over to Indian food because my family and I, some of the best food we've ever eaten is African food from different nations. We had some really good South African food, as well as some very, very delicious food in Ghana. Other than those African dishes that we've had, and Ethiopian food as well. Indian food and Mediterranean food. Some of the freshest food, delicious food that you will ever eat in your entire life. And the one thing you can tell that's different than their food and our food is the amount of colors that they have, natural colors that they have versus American food. If you notice, majority of American food is not bright. It's more so dark and brown, meaning that it was grilled, fried, or rotisserie in a matter, where these food are steamed, they're simmered, or some sort of, but you have carrots, and you have green beans and peas, you have all of these fresh vegetables. And out of these, the only thing that you could probably argue that is essentially bad for you is the rice and the meat if you're a non-meat eater, right? These are the things that you may have to argue. But other than that, family, most of you guys are eating fried rice, you're eating chicken or steak and macaroni and cheese. Even myself, again, family, I'm not pointing out none of you, it's me as well, that we're eating these things. And these things are very, very harmful to us. And believe me, when we do these videos here, some of these topics are very hard for me to go over because I'm a victim too. I'm a culprit too. I'm an assailant too. Because not only am I a victim of the U.S. food industry, but I'm also an assailant as well. I'm also doing it to myself because I have the knowledge, and we have to take self-accountability. But I was just looking at their food. Everything is quote unquote lean or fresh. And when you eat at these Indian restaurants, when you eat at these Mediterranean restaurants, the food is very delicious, very fresh, very savory. Okay. So yeah, they have really, really good food, right? Really, really good food. And if you guys never had Indian food, I would definitely tell you Indian food and Mediterranean food, some of the best food I've ever had in my life. Now, before we get into these additives and these harmful chemicals that they put in food that not only affect the children, but as adults as well. I see I have Israel in the room, Jermaine Anderson. Nice to see you brothers here today. Israel says they monopolize the board. Indeed. Of course they do. Let's see here. I still put brown sugar in my spaghetti. Family, let me tell you, once you realize the addictive nature of sugar within itself, and then here's the thing. Sugar from sugarcane has a small brown hue to it. It's not white. Sugar is not naturally white. They bleach sugar to be white. That's psychological. They bleach bread to be white. That's psychological. When you ever look at the ingredients of bread, you will see enriched flour of some sort, because the Indonesians say bleach flour, because Well, they associated white with goodness, white with purity, white with holy. So when you're thinking that you're putting sugar or salt or eating white bread and something, you're thinking psychologically that it's good for you. You may not say it consciously. You know that too much sugar or sugar in itself is bad because sugar feeds cancer. People who are going through cancer, they tell them to stay away from sugar. And a lot of these people, in order to starve cancer out, they fast. And some of these people fast from anywhere from 15 to 30 days. And they try to eat foods that are very, very low in sugar because sugar feeds cancer cells. But anyway, I digress. I'm no nurse, I'm no doctor. Let me move on. It states here, the American Academy of Pediatrics warns about these harms and points out that they are often worse for children. Children are smaller, so their dose of any given chemical ends up being higher. They put their hands in their mouths, and more adults so they are likely to ingest more. Their bodies are still developing, so they can be more at risk of harm. They are young, so the chemicals have more time to do more damage. Now, BPA is a derivative that if you were to warm up your food in your Tupperware, that bleeds inside of your food. And now what they found out, regardless if you warm up your food in Tupperware and or plastic, that forms of BPA and epoxy will leak inside of your food. And some of the ramifications of these chemicals are dire, not only to yourself, but to your kids twofold. And that's what we need to understand here. They state, listen to this. Yeah. They are found in the lining of food and soda cans, plastic with the number 3 or 7, and cash register receipts among the places. They're usually found in plastic baby bottles and sippy cups. While this has been banned, other bottles and cups may still contain them. See, a lot of these things we don't even know as a public. I didn't know that BPA was actually banned in baby bottles and sippy cups. I didn't know that. Maybe you as a parent who has a small child in the recent years, you probably found that out. Now, this one right here states that these can also, like hormones, interfering with male genitalia development and can increase the risk of obesity and cardiovascular disease. They said they are ubiquitous, found not just in plastic packaging, garden hosing, inflatable toys, but also in things like nail polish, hairsprays, lotions, and fragrances. They also have your PFCs. They said they can lead to low birth weight babies, as well as problems with the immune system, the thyroid, and fertility. The list goes on and on, family. What about one of the major contributing to ADHD, artificial food colorings? They have been found to increase symptoms in children who have attention deficient hyperactivity disorder. They are found in all sorts of food products, but especially those marketed for children. But have artificial food colors been banned? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nitrates. These can interfere with the thyroid as well as with the blood's ability to deliver oxygen to the body. Shortness of breath. Can't walk up a pair of steps without stopping. I mean, who knows the effects that our food are having on us today? It says they can also increase the risk of certain cancers. They are used to preserve food and enhance its color. They are commonly found in processed foods, especially meats. I'm not telling you guys to be vegetarians because I'm not a vegetarian. As I joked here before, I'm a flexitarian. Some days I eat meat, some days I don't. But family, this information has you to take accountability. What are you putting in your mouth? Are you reading the ingredient? And the reason why I didn't say ingredients is because when I read that book, Fat Chance, what I was learning is that more times than not, if you pick up a product and it has ingredients with an S, you're probably already wrong. Meaning that you should eat things that are only one ingredient, like an apple. What's in an apple? An apple. What are you eating? Steak. What's in the steak? Steak. But when you start getting to boxed and canned foods, these are some of the problems with preservatives and processed food that you guys may eat. Like if you're eating Vienna sausage, did you see all the different types of meats in Vienna sausage? Of course you have. Now, it kind of goes into some of the preventive measures that you guys can take in order to decrease or eradicate these chemicals from your food. This is coming from the healthharvard.edu. And of course, you guys can do the research on your own. Now, 5 American food ingredients that are banned in other countries. And I just want you to take a glance at some of our favorite junk food, right? It's a reason why we call it junk food. We call it junk food because it has no health benefits at all. And of course, some people are like, well, them potato chips and popcorn give you carbohydrates, and carbohydrates give you energy, and in the energy, did you know that eating a baked sweet potato will give you the same amount, if not more, but it has a high content of fiber to help your body to get rid of the waste instead of you holding on to that extra fat, visceral fat that's probably blocking your kidneys, that's suffocating your lungs. But let's get into it, family. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm looking at this list, and 2 of my guilty pleasures are popcorn and potato chips. But here are 5 things that other countries won't allow in their food that America does. Brominated vegetable oil. We're going to get into it. It states here that BVO contains bromine, which can be linked to skin irritations, headaches, memory loss, and impaired balance. Family, let me just tell you right now, I have eczema. Who knows why I have eczema? And I remember also with Mountain Dew, and again, this is not a smear campaign against Mountain Dew, that at one point in time, they had a food coloring called Yellow 5 that was linked to all sorts of medical issues. I'll just leave it at that. Let's move on. Ostra. It's in one of my favorite guilty pleasures as potato chips. I'm a potato chip man. I'm trying to get away from it. My wife says she's not going to buy any more potato chips. Well, honey, hopefully you're not watching this, but I got money too. I can just go buy my own potato chips. But nonetheless, again, I tell you, I'm guilty as charged, family. I'm guilty as charged. It states here, certain items such as diet versions of Pringles, Ruffles, Doritos were linked to various unfortunate health issues like cramping, diarrhea, and loose bowel movements, or what was deemed at the time fecal urgency and anal leakage. That all just sounds nasty, because let me tell you something. You ever had an issue where you probably ate something, probably had dairy inside of it, all right? A lot of us should not be consuming dairy. I know. I love cheese. I love ice cream. We all do, because that's the way we grew up. But if we dive deeper into Chinese culture, not to say we're those people, but to kind of take one of the health benefits out of their book, is that they don't have a lot of dairy in their food. Like, if you look at a lot of Chinese dishes, they have no dairy. When you look at Indian dishes, some of them may have cream every now and again, but a lot of them use coconut. Okay, coconut curry. So again, the eradication of dairy. It says the source of problem was apparent Ostra, which was approved by the Food and Drug Administration, better known as the FDA, at the beginning of 1996, meant to be used to replace fat in calorie-free, fat-free, and cholesterol-free foods. It turned out that Ostra causes unfavorable side effects, which is why it is not used in Canada and the European Union. And what you're going to know from a lot of these countries that ban these additives and preservatives that America has allowed because of profiteering, what you're going to notice, some of the poorest countries have eradicated this from their food. They will not allow these chemicals in their food, these additives in their food. Potassium bromate. Now, I can speak to this. Any country I've been to outside of America has a different effect on me when it comes to bread. A lot of us, especially if you was growing up in a European nation, and America is a European nation, believe it or not, you have eaten a lot of bread. And a lot of us love bread. We go to Panera Bread, we buy bread, French bread, don't matter what it bread. We love good bread. but the bread, the feeling that you receive after you eat this bread of bloating because of the additives and maybe even the yeast. The best and cheapest dough improvers in the baking industry. So they're using some of the low age products. It states here that food chemistry further explains that it is oxidizing agent and one of the best and cheapest dough improvers in the baking industry. It is also an additive that has been found to cause cancer in rodents. And we know, family, they use rodents like mice and rats because, believe it or not, their DNA sequence as well as their body makeup is very similar to us. That's why you always see them using lab rats. According to the data published by the journal Environmental Health Perspective, potassium bromate is carcinogenic. It's a carcinogen, meaning that it causes cancer. It said it caused cancer in rats, and both man and experimental animals were given it orally. Although potassium bromate is still used in the United States, they note here that it's banned in Canada, the European Union, China, as well as Brazil and other countries. I've been to Brazil, family. I've been to Brazil, and they have places called the favelas where it's all these different amalgamated kind of buildings or houses, rather, made out of sheet metal. It's the ghetto, we call it in America. But nonetheless, thousands of people living here, and they even ban these things in their food, even with a high population of poverty, even though they will be able to preserve this food for it to stay on the shelf a lot longer. How is it when I went to France, they will bake fresh bread every day? People will go to these bread shops, these bakery shops, and buy fresh bread almost every day. You will literally see thousands of French people walking around with fresh bread in their hand, French bread in their hand. Then the next day, you will see the bread that wasn't essentially bought 50% off. By Tuesday, the food is off the shelf. Monday morning, they bake the bread fresh. By Tuesday evening, the bread that they baked on Monday are off the shelf. You know why? Because it begins to mold. Because they're not using preservatives and additives and things to have it last for 15 days. Our bread in America lasts 15 days. Tell me how fresh that is. Let me move on. BHA and BHT. Now, again, I know a lot of us are lovers of cheese. I know currently my wife and I, we're kind of using vegan cheese, but when we looked at it, vegan cheese is also processed as well. So, I mean, you just can't get away from it. Some things we should have never been eating in the first place. They say here that BHA is found in processed food and drinks like meat, cereal, chips, butter, and beer. And BHT is used in meats and snacks as well as gum, things that are baked and dehydrated foods. It says BHA also interferes with hormone function, while BHT is toxic to rodents, can act as a tumor promoter in certain situations. Understandably, here we go. Understandably, both are banned in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, as well as Europe. But again, this is one of the additives, that is one of the chemicals that America has allowed. Why do they allow certain additives and preservatives? Is America at a food shortage? How is it that people in China, India, Africa don't put these additives in their food and they have over 1 billion people? Countries that have a higher impoverished rate than America eat some of the freshest foods. They don't even understand the word organic. They come to America, they're like, wait a minute, why is this label organic? That means that it doesn't have any additives or preservatives. Like, what are they putting on the food? It says that both are considered safe for use in food when the total antioxidant content is less than 0.02%. None of us know what that means. We don't know. Like, that someone said, hey man, I put strychnine in your food, but it was only at 0.02%. What? Yeah. I only put folic acid in your food, but it was only at 0.02%. My point here, family, is you don't want any harmful chemical in your food that may or will cause cancer. You don't want that. That may cause gout. That may cause high cholesterol, blood pressure. But again, we have to be disciplined of the food that we put in our mouths. Let me move on. This is one of the biggest killers of them all, are the color dyes that's in food. And earlier we stated about yellow number 5. United States allows dyes such as yellow number 6 and red number 40 to be used in products that may find their way into your dinner table. European countries do not allow this artificial coloring in their food. See, when I travel to other countries, even though I may gain weight because I'm eating probably more than I ever should, but the point is their food has a different effect on my wife and I. We've noticed that. We was eating bread on Qatar Airlines. We was eating bread within South Africa, and we didn't feel this bloated feeling. We didn't feel our skin or anything weird after we ate something. Have you guys ever ate cheese or drunk milk or had bread or cheese and you felt weird afterwards? That's because of some of the chemicals that are in our food. It states here that M&Ms in Europe is colored with natural food coloring. The same goes for Skittles. Again, natural food coloring, not chemical food coloring. Specifically, red 40, blue 1, yellow 5, yellow 6 are banned. These dyes are common in sodas and sport drinks and icing. These food coloring agents are linked to hyperactivity and attention in kids. I remember as a little kid, and even as an adult, you always have parents, sit your little ass down, you bouncing off the walls, and you're wondering why. You're wondering why these new generations outside of baby boomers, a lot of these kids are diagnosed with ADHD. And for a long time, medical professionals, those who want to oust the food industry, has been pounding the pavement on information and analysis of what are they putting in the food. Now, unfortunately, some of us can't help it because we all can't afford organic food. What's organic food? Hey, man, plant the food, put it in the grocery store. But no, they put all sorts of pesticides, fertilizers that are soaked in chemicals. They're not using nothing natural. This is why these items can stay in grocery stores for weeks without even deteriorating of any sorts. Riddle me this. You guys recall where you used to go look at apples, and apples used to be real shiny? That's because they used to put wax on the apples. You ever took a red apple and it was real shiny? They did that because psychologically it looks delicious. So you're more prone to buy these apples more so than another apple that looked kind of brown and didn't look as bright. They were organic, but you will go to the red shiny apple. But before you ate those apples, no one ever told you you need to wash those apples off. No, what you did, you and ate the apple. These are the problems within our food, family, and it's been happening for a very, very long time. See, no one ever talks about there's been a shortage in food, so that's why America is now creating foods in labs. I've seen all these videos, family, and I didn't want to gross you guys out, but believe me, there's companies right now, there are lab growing meat. When I mean lab growing meat, I'm talking about chicken, and they're doing this in petri dishes, in labs, in cells. And then they're mixing real chicken with fake chicken, and then they're letting people taste it and say, hey, this is chicken, this is lab grown chicken. Can you taste the difference? No. Out of all countries, why is America doing this? Why is America trying to produce food at such a high level? Because first and foremost, what they've done is they got us addicted on food. Because they know that 90% of the food that's on shelves, 90% of the food that's non-organic, and even some organic foods have sugar in them. So we are addicted to food. When I look at other countries, some of these people only eat once or twice a day. Where in America, we eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack here, a snack there. And when you look at the ingredients or you're looking at what you're eating outside of salads, more times than not, it has all these added products in it. I wish I had the book here for you guys so you guys can essentially see what I've been looking at for a very long time. But I talked about eating food that's from the Mediterranean as well as Indian food. And I just saw something here from the book Fat Chance that I'm going to cover with you guys. Now, it states here, a small town in Italy is a home of the Mediterranean diet, right? I'm not going to read all of this to you, but it goes into here's what's in the real Mediterranean diet: high olive oil consumption, mono unsaturated fat, beans, lentils, peas, fruits, vegetables, unrefined grains, fiber, dairy products, saturated fat, eggs, high quality protein, fish, wine in moderation. And it states because they think it's all about pasta, which is Italian but not Mediterranean, because what the Italians used to eat in Italy is not what the Italians eat in the United States. The pasta and pizza movement actually started in the United States within the poor Italian immigrant population because of the cost of carbohydrates versus meat. That diet then migrated over to Italy, and now the Italians have our problem. Basically, they're saying that at one point in time, the Mediterranean diet, which kind of derived out of Italy at the time, was very, very healthy. And because of the poor Italians starting to eat more carbohydrates to be full, the same thing as poor Europeans were eating more bread because they couldn't afford meat, that sort of culture transferred back over to Italy. But nonetheless, family, we have to be very cognizant of what we put inside our mouths, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm way overweight for my height. I'm 5'11". I should be around 190. I need to lose around 40 to 50 pounds. If somebody will look at me in person, they say, oh, no, man, you're good. You kind of buff, you kind of this. I can still be buff and be within my BMI. And some people will refute the BMI. Well, the BMI, that's for white people. And okay, well, I give myself 10 to 15 pounds swing weight. I give myself 10 to 15 pounds swing weight. But anytime, if your BMI is 190 and you're 260, 270, but you carry it well, that doesn't mean that your joints are not being affected. That doesn't mean that your organs are not being affected. And what I'm getting back from the very beginning, that the food industry in the United States of America is built upon profiteering, about money. Everything derives from money in this country. We don't want to get on the medical industry. Okay, I'm still trying to get in touch with Dr. Lane Rowland so we can even talk about that piece on this channel. But family, I want to encourage you guys to do your best when it comes to your health and the things that you put inside your mouth. We have Kane in the room. Kane states, I like candy, but the food coloring in it got me tweaking. I'm not a big candy person. I'm more of a chocolate and nut and toffee and that sort. But again, this is some of the addictions that our country ensure that we, the people, continue to buy. Because who of you just had one chip? Let someone put in the chat, if you had one potato chip, a Ruffle, would it be salt and vinegar or onion, whatever, barbecue chips, whatever. Somebody say, hey man, can I get a chip? Or do you always ask for chips? And some, like myself, I'm a victim where I've eaten a large bag of chips in one sitting. And the worst thing that you can do is have a large bag of chips while you're watching a movie. You're going to eat through that whole entire bag. At least I am. Now, some people's stomachs are not big as mine, so they can't eat as much. But family, I swear I'm trying to get better. And I hope that you are too. Because I will tell you this, family, there's a lot of ways that countries can control people. And one of the ways is through your health. You're always dependent on the system in some form or fashion. I would ask you guys to really ask yourself, at a population at 330, 340 million people, why are we the biggest producers of food? Why are we the biggest consumers of food? And I'm going to tell you why. It's because sugar, processed food, which leads to obesity and disease. A lot of your family members have been suffering from high blood pressure, obesity, being overweight, overfat, however you want to label it, high cholesterol, cancer. Most of the ailments, most of the medical problems that Americans face, I will have to, and again, this is a very arbitrary number. I haven't done any research on it, but I'm going to go off on a whim and state that it's around 90% of the issues. None of these things are quote unquote hereditary or something that you possibly was exposed to. Yeah. You was exposed to death by the way of your food. Some of your favorite products, unfortunately, are in boxes. Some of your favorite food, unfortunately, are in cans. Me and my wife, we bang the table every time we go to Whole Foods. We know that they have probably some of the healthiest products next to a farmer's market in America than the regular grocery stores. Only reason why we bang the table is because it's so damn expensive. But the one question I have for you, are you willing to pay $2 or $3 more for a healthier lettuce, arugula, kale, whatever the case may be, than the ones they put pesticides and all sorts of chemicals on to preserve it so it can get to your table so it can kill you? Food is definitely killing us. Outside of the police, food is definitely killing us. Because when I look at the ailments of our people, this family, when you do the numbers, right? And I'm gonna leave you guys with this. What's going on, Armageddon? Nice to see you, brother. When you look at the Black family, majority of Black people in America are obese. And when I mean obese, some of you are just thinking some big, fat, sloppy guy, some big, fat, sloppy girl. No, you can be proportionate in your weight, right? Where it looks decent enough. But you're 30, 40, 50 pounds over your BMI. And then for those who outright look like they're obese, then you already know the issue. And a lot of times when you look at obesity, the first thing you think about is the lack of discipline. They need to push away from the table. I would agree with you. But I think another look at it is, what are they doing to the food? As we went over this afternoon, how these certain chemicals are affecting our children. And the one thing they really didn't harp on any of the reports I gave you here, family, is the addictive nature of these chemicals and additives, and most importantly, sugar. There have been a lot of well-known athletes that have been kind of pushing away from these very, very unhealthy practices when it comes to certain things. Let me share this with you very quickly.
Life 360 is a game changer in our family.
Oh no, we can't do that. We can't do that.
I have two
Sorry
boys.
about that. Let's just wait till that kind of ends, family. But this is one of the most important things that a lot of us do not intake. Yes, that's a gallon of water, but I probably only drunk like half, okay? But I do want to share something with you here once these advertisements end. But what I'm noticing is that a lot of us are suffering, and our bodies are telling us some of the ailments that are suffering. And I don't want to be too grotesque with you guys, but looking at your stool, looking at your fecal matter is letting you know a lot of problems that your body is enduring, right? Simply looking at your waste that's coming out your bottom. If your waste is more like a putty, like some people may even label it mud butt, then I have to look at your diet. I actually read this journal of how you can actually look at your fecal matter to change your diet, because your fecal matter it should come out in a certain way. And I'm trying to find this, family, but we might have to skip this portion. Let me see if I can get this back on here. Give me 1 second. But I do a lot of things with health because I actually want to live for a very long time. At least, I kind of want to live to 77, 80, something like that. I want to see my son to grow up to be a grown man. I want to see other family members grow to be very, very old, but I need to be around as well. And one of the problems that a lot of us are suffering from is obesity due to the food, due to profiteering. It's a trickle down effect. Let me see if I can get this queued up for you guys. This is taking its time, family. Bear with me here. We got a couple more seconds. I'm gonna pop this on the camera for you guys. All right, here we go. I want you to watch. Now, a couple of things I want you guys to take away from that short little clip. Now, the players, they were getting free advertisement, off the players, because if the players was essentially promoting those products, meaning that they were getting paid, they would have kept those products on the table. But what they do is they just put, some beverages on the table, making sure that their signs are facing outward towards the camera. So when that professional ball player comes up, they're getting free advertisement, like they're promoting their brand, right? And so if you saw them in the second video, they had Heineken. He like, I don't drink Heineken. I didn't sign any contract with Heineken. But these are some of the tricks that they do in order to push these harmful products on the public. They even trying to fool the athletes. The athletes are like, what? Wait a minute. He moved the one. Then he said water, agua. I see I got Curdell in the room. Probiotics can be a game changer. I like the gummies. Now, let me tell you something about gummies, since he mentioned gummies. Do you know, family, some of the harmful things are in gummies? Let me look this up. I looked this up because my wife told me, and I was just grossed out by this. Give me 1 second here. I want to make sure that you guys know what's in gummies. Now, what they're stating here is ingredients to be aware of in gummies, right? Sugar, gelatin, artificial flavors, artificial colors. Then we go over yellow 5 and red 40 and yellow 6. This is all in gummies, family. These are the chemicals in gummies. And this is one small example that we've already went through of some of these harmful chemicals that they put in food, of some of your favorite treats. I said it: potato chips, popcorn, gummies. Now, one of these, and I forgot which one it was, is from a pig. The gelatin to kind of make it sticks together. I forgot the name of the ingredient. If anybody knows the name of that ingredient, please put it in the chat as I'm looking for it, so you guys know. Now, there are some gummies out there that don't have that ingredient. Okay. Let's see. Hamburgers and gummies. All right. We're going to go through this, and I'm not trying to gross you guys out, but I think these are some of the things that you need to know. It's gelatin. That's what it is. The gelatin form is actually from a pig. Now, here's another story. It says pig skin, dead wasps, and bee vomit. What's really in candy? Animal inside byproducts make up many of the common ingredients and the confectionery industry, right? And we're not going, but gelatin comes from the animal skin and bone. And as we noticed when we was talking about this earlier, that gelatin was definitely part of the list. I just couldn't recognize it at the time. But I was told this even by my wife, like, yeah, you know, they got gelatin is pig, whatever. I was like, what? But anyway, it states here a very common ingredient in gummies and jellies is gelatin. It's extracted from the collagen in animal skin and bone and gives gummy bears a delightful, bouncy texture. That chewing, so you're just chewing dead animal skin and bone. Many of the most common candy products found in Canada stores contain gelatin derived from pork, which makes them off limits to those who follow a kosher or halal diet, as both the Jewish and Islamic faiths forbid the consumption of pork. So if you're a Muslim or you are essentially Jewish, you can't really eat gummies. You can't really eat jellies or anything like that. Most of these candies right here, family, have pork in them. The gelatin contains pork. So hopefully I didn't ruin your gummies for you, but every now and again, I won't lie to you, I probably have 2 or 3 gummies, but again, I'm eating pork skin. Let's see what else you guys got for me. Let's see here. But guys, that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. I just want you guys to be aware that all of this derives from the term profiteering, where they're profiting off the addiction of food and they're using chemicals to mass produce foods, as well as they're creating foods in laboratories now, right? We understand that broccoli is one of the foods that they actually spliced in the lab. Broccoli is not organic to earth. They actually made that in the lab, as well as cauliflower. But they did a lot of tests on it. Supposedly broccoli is just as healthy as any other vegetable. But now we're getting to the cell growth and laboratory growth of meats, chicken and beef. And if you guys do a quick Google search, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And these are not fictitious stories. These are 100% real stories that they're now cell growing meat in labs. So hopefully you guys just be aware of what's going on in the world, and that unfortunately this is how not only big business and the food industry, but as a country controls its people and make sure that the pockets of the big businesses stay inflated as well. All of these things are connected in some way or form. They are allowing banned chemicals that are banned in other countries, allowing them in the United States of America, because they can mass produce food with these chemicals and the cell growth. Then by you eating these unhealthy products, that's causing all sorts of diseases and viruses and ailments, right? Obesity, cancer, ADHD, Parkinson's disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol, the list goes on and on and on. Guess what I have you now hooked into? The medical industry. Now you're dependent on the medical industry. Now you have to get a prescription. And from that prescription comes along all of these other side effects, which then from the side effects from your main prescription, you need a prescription to hide the side effects of. Anytime you guys prescribe something for an ailment that you may have you noticed they at least give you 2 or 3 other pills? They're like, oh, well, this is going to make you have bowel movements, but it may be runny bowel movements. So now we need to give you a stool softener, but then you may have uncomfortability. You may have upset stomach. So now we're going to give you this for your upset stomach, but that may have you bleed out your eyes. And now we're going to give you clear eyes. The list goes on and on, family. So try to eat as healthy as you can, and also know that America doesn't give 2 shakes of a lamb tail about your health. The only thing they care about is profiting. You guys have a great and wonderful day. I see Armageddon says soy in food. Absolutely. There's a lot of soy in the food that actually produces man boobs. We won't get into that. You guys have a good one. I see you guys on the next one. I'm out.